Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be ranking every first-round pick that we saw last night in the 2023 NFL Draft. I'm going to give, I guess, just a brief little analysis about it because you can read what's going to be on the screen. I posted all of these on my Instagram page, which you can go check out, KingFirewolf13_YT. But without further ado, I think we're just going to get right into the video here, starting off with the Jets' first-round pick, which was Will McDonald IV. He's an edge rusher out of Iowa State. He's not a bad player, don't get me wrong. I gave this a D-. It was almost an F. And it would have been if edge rusher wasn't necessarily a need for the Jets. Like if they went to a position, if they got a corner that was as low on my board as Will McDonald was, this would be an F for sure. But because it is still at least a somewhat a position of need, it's still a D-. But Will McDonald, I think he was in the 70s or 80s on my board, and he went to the Jets round 1. He's going to be 24 soon, and he's still behind a lot of talent that was on the board at this pick. I mean, Myles Murphy was still left. He's got the upside. He's like, I think 3 years younger. You had Zach Harrison, who I have higher. You have Tuli Tuipulotu, who I have higher on my board than Will McDonald. This was a really weird pick, and I don't want to say that they lost the trade yet, because obviously we have to see the rest of the picks, and the Packers, they didn't pick great either. But it's so weird to see that after them getting Sauce Gardner last year in the first round. This is just a really weird pick, in my opinion. Next on the list, I guess ranked number 30. Obviously, there's only 31 picks in the first round this year. Dolphins forfeited their pick. We have the Bills taking Dalton Kincaid. Now, Dalton Kincaid is a really good player. He was my tight end number 2. I just am not sure about not only the need, but just the player that they took as well. I mean, like I said, Kincaid's good and everything, but he's about to be 24, or he is 24. He is a tight end. The Bills already have Dawson Knox. You could have got another receiver here or traded back out of the first round to get a receiver. I think they could have done a lot of different things here, and I don't really like the Kincaid pick. And they also, I guess they run a 2 tight end offense, but again, you already have a receiving tight end with Dawson Knox. So you could get a more complete tight end with Michael Mayer or Darnell Washington and develop him into that receiving tight end that you want, because he's also a really, really good blocker. I just don't know if I liked Kincaid being the pick here, especially coming off an injury as well. That's why he gets a D-. Hey, remember when I said the Packers couldn't draft either? Well, now they're back, because at number 13, they took Lucas Van Ness. Way, way, way too early to take Lucas Van Ness. I know they need defensive line help, I guess, but Lucas Van Ness is just not very good. I know he's got the ceiling, but I did not see him as a first-round pick at all. A second-round pick maybe, but not a first. The Packers taking him at 13. Like, even a late first would have been a lot better. It still wouldn't have been graded very highly by me, but it would have been a lot better. I am not a fan of this pick at all. Like I said, I don't think Van Ness is very good. The only reason it's not a D- is because there are worse picks. And also, I do see the upside and why the Packers would have wanted to take Van Ness. But like I said, I just don't think the player is very good. Next up is Deonte Banks for the New York Giants. They swapped picks with the Jaguars, and I don't remember what the rest of the trade was. Deonte Banks, he's a scheme fit, but again, better players available at this pick. You had Joey Porter, because Joey Porter Jr. You had Cam Smith. You had, I would even put Keeley above Deonte Banks. That's just some of the players. I had more players on my board, but at least for scheme fits, that's kind of what you want, even though Keely Ringo, I guess, isn't actually really a scheme fit. He's a bit too raw, so I understand not taking him. But you have Joey Porter, who is also a scheme fit, who probably would be and is a better player, in my opinion, than Deonte Banks is. But again, this is another one of those picks where it doesn't get a D minus because I do see the pick and I can see why they picked him, but I just don't like it personally. Up next is Darnell Wright, and I do like that the Bears took a tackle. Paris Johnson's off the board, but it gets a D plus because I don't think Darnell Wright was the best tackle available. I had Broderick Jones higher, Skoronski higher, and I know Skoronski's probably going to slide in at guard, but he still could have been a really good guard, and you could have kicked someone else out to tackle or drafted another tackle later on. You could have just done so much more, and you also traded out of number 9, which allowed the Eagles to get Jalen Carter, which would have been a better pick for Chicago, I think, even though, again, they needed a tackle a lot. But you could have either, traded back more or just traded back up to get one. You could have done a lot of different things. I don't know if I like the Darnell Wright pick. Again, he's a really good pass protector, as you can see in my description there. But again, he is older for the class, and he will be an instant impact for sure. Like I said, I think there are better tackles available at number 10. Next up, we have Felix Onadike Uzoma for the Chiefs, the last pick of the first round. And this one was I didn't really know what they were going to take. They took an edge rusher, which I guess replaces Frank Clark. Again, this is only lower just because I had other players at the position that were better. Not that the Chiefs really need anything, but, I just had better picks, better players available at the pick they had for the position that if I was the Chiefs or a Chiefs fan, that I would have preferred them to take. And they didn't, but I do like Felix Onadike Uzoma. I think he's got potential, and he should develop pretty nice in Kansas City. Next up is the really strange Jahmyr Gibbs pick that the Lions made at number 12 after trading back twice, I believe. And the explanation is that he was the highest on their board at the time, but their running back room consisted of David Montgomery, who they just paid, and DeAndre Swift, who the team drafted a few years ago, and I get he gets injured, but you still have David Montgomery there, so even if Swift gets injured, Jahmyr Gibbs would still only be the second running back on your roster. And I know now it sounds like at the time of making this video, they're thinking about trading DeAndre Swift by the time day 2 draft comes. He will probably end up being traded. So this pick probably will not look so bad. But at the time, it was just super weird. And it would have been lower than a C if, again, it didn't look like they were going to trade one of their running backs. But even when they picked it, I kind of figured they would, so that's why I gave it a C. And if they came out and said that they weren't trading anybody, this would have been a lot lower on the list. Potentially the worst. Probably not the worst, but potentially. Next up is something that I don't think is necessarily a bad pick. Quentin Johnston just isn't a very good player, in my opinion. I think he was, at this point, the second receiver. He could have been the third receiver taken off the board. Either way, I wasn't a fan of really any receivers outside of Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round, so that's why he's a little lower. But for the Chargers to take him just seems a little weird. Again, this is another one that's kind of weird, but I do get it, and he can develop into something good because he's going to be behind Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and potentially even Josh Palmer. Maybe he'll learn to actually catch with his hands for the Chargers playing with Justin Herbert. So this pick will probably look a lot better than it does right now, but as of right now, I have it at a C+. Next up is the Washington Commanders taking Emmanuel Forbes with the 16th overall pick. And the reason this is so low, Forbes is a good player, but he's a guy who I would have liked to have taken at the back end of the first, not in the middle. You got to understand at this point during the draft, the people available at corner, we had Christian Gonzalez, who slipped past the Commanders. Then you also have Cam Smith there. Keely Ringo, like I said earlier. I think I had a couple other people at corner, like Eli Ricks, higher than I had Emmanuel Forbes. Now, Emmanuel Forbes, like I said, he's good. He's a guy who I would have liked to seen be taken at the back end of the first. But at number 16, especially considering the board at that time, I can't really give it any higher than a B. I was going to give it a C plus again, but like I said, I do still think Forbes is a good player, and he does help the Commanders with a need that they have. So I can't be too terribly harsh on it, but there were definitely better players available. Next up is the Falcons taking Bijan at number 8. Now, I don't care that Bijan went number 8. He is an elite level running back right now. I just don't know if the Falcons needed a running back, especially more than other positions on the roster. I mean, they were mocked, at least by me, to get an edge rusher or at least a corner, even though they traded for Jeff Okudah. I'm just not certain. I mean, obviously, Bijan, he's going to be a really good player, and I know Arthur Smith is there, and I've seen what he's done with Derrick Henry. So I'm sure that it'll work out for Bijan. I just would have liked to see a different team take him, considering that the Falcons, that Tyler Algier, I think is how you say it, and Cordell Patterson were in that backfield last year. So they've already got a decent piece or two in the backfield, but Bijan does add some fresh legs into that. So that's why this is another one of those where it's like, it's kind of weird, but I don't hate it. Now, this one might be a bit controversial to be this low, but I have Zay Flowers at 22 to the Ravens as the next spot on this list. I'm just not as high on Zay Flowers as everybody else is what it comes down to, and every draft so far where the Ravens have tried to give Lamar a weapon, it hasn't worked out, and they've been about the same size as Zay Flowers. You look at Hollywood Brown, you look at Rashad Bateman, who is bigger, but isn't quite the athlete Zay Flowers is. So either way, it's kind of, he's just not been great either. I think I would have waited to the second round to take a receiver for Lamar. If I was going to take a receiver at all, I would have liked to see maybe a Miles Murphy here if I was the Ravens. I can't do it too low because obviously, I mean, Zay Flowers, again, he's still a solid player. I'm just not as high on him as everybody else, and the Ravens obviously do need a wide receiver. Up next is the Jaguars at 27 after swapping picks with the Giants, and I think they traded back again, if I'm not mistaken, with the Bills, and they ended up with Anton Harrison. Again, a solid player, someone who I expect to go later, though, more probably like the early to mid second round. So for value reasons, I have it at a B, but I still like the player and I like the fit. You're getting Trevor Lawrence protection, and that's always a good thing to get a young quarterback protection if you have faith in him. Up next, we have the Kalijah Kancey pick made by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19. I think him paired with Vita Vea is absolutely hilarious, and it's going to be really fun and awesome to watch as that progresses. You can't really double team either. It'll be very fun to watch. If I personally would have went tight end, probably Michael Mayer here if I was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But Kalijah Kancey was valued around this range for me on my own big board. I had him a few spots away from 19, so the value is about where I would have expected him to go. I gave this pick a B plus because, like I said, I would have preferred somebody else, but I don't mind the pick at all. The next pick on this list is Paris Johnson Jr. Now, the rest from here on out are all, I'm going to be giving pretty similar reviews probably, so they're probably going to go by a little quicker. Paris Johnson was linked to the Cardinals for the last couple days, I think, because Kyler Murray wanted him. So they got their guy after trading out of the third pick and got a really good haul for it. It'll be interesting to see what they do with those picks that they got. Paris Johnson, good for the Cardinals. They were able to trade back, still get their guy, and steal him from the Bears, who were definitely taking him if he got to 9. So, good pick by the Cardinals here. I guess I forgot to mention the only reason I gave it an A minus as opposed to an A or an A plus is because he was not my tackle number 1. Broderick Jones was. So that's the pick I would have preferred here, just for if they wanted the best tackle. But Paris Johnson was the expected pick. But I do have to knock it a little bit just for the fact that I do think Broderick Jones was better. Up next, we have the Saints taking Brian Breesy, a player I really like. I hope he does really well in the NFL. He's been through a lot in his college career. And yeah, I mean, the Saints were probably always taking a defensive lineman. I personally would have liked to see Mozzie Smith, but it makes sense that Mozzie Smith did not make it to the Saints. So they went with Brian Breesy, who is the next best player available at that position. And yeah, I like the pick. Another one that might be a little controversial that I have so low is Nolan Smith. Again, I think the value here is really good. I had Nolan Smith valued about this range. The fact that he slipped this far was also pretty crazy considering some of the edges that got taken before him, like Will McDonald and Lucas Van Ness. And this was the pick that solidified the fact that, okay, yeah, the Eagles just want to rebuild the 2021 Georgia defense that just dominated everybody. And hey, who can blame them? There was a legendary defense, and they have the opportunity to do it, so why not? Yeah, this was just another really good pick. Howie Roseman, for 2 years in a row, has absolutely killed the draft, and seeing Nolan Smith on the other side of Hassan Reddick should scare teams like crazy. Up next is the Seahawks taking Jackson Smith and Jigba, making that offense very scary with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett on the outside, with Jackson Smith and Jigba in the middle, with Kenneth Walker on the team already as well. I mean, the Seahawks, the rich get richer at this point. Geno Smith is a very happy dude right now with all these guys on this team. The Seahawks are looking to make another playoff run, maybe even a deeper run this time. I mean, yeah, they made their offense better and they made their defense better earlier in the draft. This was just another really good pick by the Seahawks. Like I said, the Seahawks made another really good pick earlier in the draft, taking Devin Witherspoon, someone who surprised me. I thought for sure Jalen Carter was going at this spot, but I guess the interview went really bad and I didn't know about it. And so Devin Witherspoon is now a Seattle Seahawk on the opposite side of Tariq Woolen. I mean, come on. This team went from a pretty good team to, whoa, really fast. I mean, they are actually a pretty scary team now, and they look like they're going to be scary in a couple years, especially when Witherspoon develops and Jackson Smith and Jigba gets better. Seahawks did, like I said, they did a really good job in this first round. Once again, I forgot to mention that I got an A- because Witherspoon was my corner too, and so the value was a little bit off. But I digress, still a really good pick. Next up was Tyree Wilson to the Raiders. This was just a solid pick. I'm not sure how big of a need edge was, considering they have Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. But Tyree Wilson will be a good piece to develop and probably take over next year when Chandler Jones likely retires. And even if he doesn't, he's going to be really old. So Tyree Wilson will be a good rotational pass rusher no matter what right away. So this is another solid pick for the Raiders, which is very weird considering the last few first-round picks they've had have all not been very good. Next up is Jordan Addison. Now, I really like this pick a lot for the Vikings because in my player evaluation, I said Jordan Addison's ceiling was probably just a really, really good wide receiver too. And here we go. He's right away going to be a wide receiver too on the Minnesota Vikings, likely taking over for Adam Thielen in his role. And yeah, we're going to see pretty much if I'm going to be right away. I'm not sure how productive Addison will be in this first season, let alone his whole career, especially considering Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson are already on the Vikings. But they basically replaced Adam Thielen with someone who's younger and possesses an almost pretty similar skill set, actually, now that I think about it. So Vikings, really good replacement pick here for a loss of talent. The next pick on this list is one that might be controversial as well, but this time because it's rated higher. I liked the Jack Campbell pick to the Lions. I think the Lions definitely could use a linebacker, especially since Alex Anzalone's getting older. Actually, I don't even know if he's on the team still. But I know linebackers aren't a position of value. I don't really care. Jack Campbell's really good. He was, I think, my number 17. That could be completely wrong, but I know he was in the top 20 somewhere. So like I said, I like the pick. I like the fit, and I think the team could definitely use a linebacker. Up next is the Titans pick with Peter Skoronski. This would be an A plus considering where he got drafted and where I had him at. I had him as a top 10 player in the draft. I'm not entirely sure about the fit for the Titans, and if he plays guard, his value drops a little bit than if he plays tackle. But he's going to be good no matter where he plays in the NFL, and pretty much no matter what team he plays for. So I can't complain too much about the pick. That's why it's an A, and that's why it's rated this high on the list. Up next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals taking Myles Murphy, which is, I think, really good for him. He's a developmental pass rusher that they can develop. He's going to be a good rotational piece right away. He could do a little bit of everything. It'll take a little bit of time for him to truly, I think, excel, but I think he is going to at some point. I really like this pick. I really like this pick for both Myles Murphy and the Bengals. And yeah, just a really good value pick as well. That's why it's an A. Up next is another pick that I think is both good value and fills a need for the Cowboys, and that's Mozzie Smith. He's going to help solidify that run defense a little bit. He's going to need more help, obviously, but this is a good start for the Cowboys in order to help stop the run a little bit better. And yeah, just I think I had him about this range on my board as well. So good value, solid fit, fills a need, all recipes for a good pick. Next up is the Colts taking Anthony Richardson at 4. This was an obvious pick considering what the first 3 picks were. Anthony Richardson should do pretty well under Shane Steichen. The only issue I have with this pick is that I'm not sure how well Anthony Richardson will do starting right away. If it wasn't for that, I think this would be, I mean, it'd still be an A no matter what, but this would be a lot more well received in the public eye, if you will. Next up is going to be Will Anderson to the Texans. They traded up aggressively to get Will Anderson, and I like it. The Texans are done playing around. They got C.J. Stroud and they got Will Anderson. I can't give this an A+, even though I want to, because he was my number 3 player on my board, and he got taken exactly where I thought he should have. It was just the right pick. It's not that A is bad. It's not necessarily a value pick. It's just the right pick to make. Another pick the Texans made that was the right pick was C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud was lower on my board in terms of how good I actually think he is, but it was the right pick to make. I'm glad all the noise of the Texans both passing on a quarterback and not liking C.J. Stroud that much were both just wrong. I don't think Stroud's better than Justin Fields was in college, but he's still the second best quarterback in this draft class, so the Texans took the right player here. Nothing to complain about, really. Coming in as the 4th best pick made in the first round was Bryce Young to the Panthers at number 1. He's been my number 1 quarterback for this draft class for a really long time, probably about 4 or 5 years since he was in high school. Yeah, I've been a huge fan of Bryce Young ever since then. I'm glad he got taken number 1. I'm glad the Panthers got their guy. He's going to be really good. I think he's the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft class. I'm excited for it. It was also one I considered giving an A+, but ended up deciding not to, again, for the same reasons of value. But here is our first true, amazing value pick with Broderick Jones to the Steelers. They traded with the Patriots. I think they just, swapped picks as well. And the Steelers got Broderick Jones. And I was a little upset because I wanted the Patriots to take Broderick Jones. But they got an even better player after this that you'll see later on in the video, even though we've only got 2 spots left after this. But yeah, Broderick Jones helps the Steelers. They needed offensive line. They got it, and I think they got the best tackle in this class. And not only the best tackle, but a top 10 player. Speaking of a top 10 player, we've got Jalen Carter, who is probably the best on-field player in this draft class, taken at number 10 to what is now probably the scariest defense in the NFL, even though they lost their defensive coordinator. Jalen Carter's back with Jordan Davis. The Eagles, I don't know why the NFL I don't know why these teams just allowed the Eagles to be able to get these guys, but here we are. Eagles ruled this first round. And yeah, Jalen Carter, he might just be the steal of the draft when it's all said and done. But here's who I think was the best pick in the first round, bias aside. I'm a huge fan of Christian Gonzalez. He was my sixth best player overall and my number one corner in the draft class, and he went to my favorite team. I was disappointed that we missed out on Broderick Jones, and then when we picked Christian Gonzalez, I was through the roof. I was so happy, so excited. Patriots know how to develop DBs as well, so this one, I think so far, is the steal of the draft. We'll see when it's all said and done if it's him or probably Jalen Carter or someone else completely different that we might see in the next few days, I guess the next 2 days of the draft, or someone else from earlier in this first round. But anyways, that's going to do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow my Instagram so you could see these graphics right when I posted them instead of waiting for this YouTube video. That being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Well, I just want to say thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more of me and other content that I post, you can check out my Instagram. It should be popping up on the screen right now. You could follow my Twitter if you want to see me talk about a bunch of random things that pop into my head. That should also be popping up on the screen. I also will occasionally stream on Twitch, and that'll be on the screen now. I also post on TikTok, and that should also be on the screen. I'll see you guys in the next one.